Hey everybody, welcome to the Dad Challenge Podcast. My name's Josh, and you're here for Ministry Monday. I got a lot to do today, so I'm not going to stick around for long. I want to do another Micah video, like ASAP, because I can't forget about her, right? Anyway, today we're going to be diving into a really sensitive topic, and that is the issue of pro-life in churches. And I'm not going to present an argument for or against being pro-life, okay? I might dabble into it a little bit. You know, this is an argument for pro-life or pro-choice. This is actually just going to be a stance from a pastor who worked at a church in ministry for 7 years, talking about how the church gets their stance on pro-life wrong. So it's going to be a big topic. So let's just get right into it. So I've been thinking about this a lot because a lot of people ask me, first of all, if I'm still a Christian. Yes, I do consider myself a Christian, lowercase c. I'm in the process of what's called deconstructing my faith, I guess, or not faith, deconstructing my outlook on church is basically what it is. And parts of it, yeah, it is my faith. Wrestling with the idea that there might not be a traditional sense of hell that we used to think, and to a lot of people that's heretical to even say that. And church is actually inherently a bad thing to a lot of people. Now, I'm not saying all churches are bad for all people, but the church could be a very detrimental, and has been a very detrimental place for a lot of people. Part of the reason is that the church is a public place where people go to, and a lot of churches now are becoming, famous, and they have celebrity pastors, and they're becoming culture shapers, and they always have been, I guess. But more and more now with the idea, Carl Lentz and all these guys, these pastors that are following these celebrity pastors, they are cultural shapers. They are influencers on Instagram, on Facebook, and Twitter. They are all part of the world. They are influential, okay? And a guy like Carl Lentz, who will go on a show and will not denounce, I'm going to call it A from now on, okay? Everybody wants to know what A is. You know the word A. It is termination, okay? That's what we're going to call it from now on, or pro-life stance, okay? Because YouTube does not like the word, the full word of A. So we're going to be talking about there for a little bit today. But again, I say all this to say that even a guy like Carl Lentz, who's very, very, very progressive as a pastor, who's very progressive. I mean, look what he's wearing here. What kind of pastor wears this? So clearly he's progressive because his circles include celebrities, and so he had to be, I guess in his thinking, he had to be super relevant so that the actors and singers and ball players and super athletes wanted to be around him because he was super cool and relevant, right? So that was his shtick, to be relevant so that he could bring Jesus to those who didn't get Jesus, which is stupid. But Jesus doesn't need Carl Lentz, to be honest with you. So the idea so I've been on this Carl Lentz thing for a little bit, but I go back to his interview where he did not denounce it. Although Hillsong and any other major church I don't know a church that doesn't denounce A, okay? Most churches, there might be a rare few that might be pro-choice on a certain level, but for the overall evangelical church in the world, and Catholics in every religion, basically, every single religion, I can't think of one that is pro-choice. A lot of argument can be made that you cannot be a Christ follower and pro-choice. That's bullshit. So let's just say that. Again, I don't want to get into the debate of whether or not it's good or bad. Am I pro-choice? No. I wouldn't consider myself pro-choice. I guess I always sit right in the middle, right? I'm not against anything for any reason, but on a biblical standpoint, I do believe that life is life. But I also believe that the laws of the land are to be adhered to, and if you want to make that choice, I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm not going to stand outside of a Planned Parenthood and raise a sign up and hate you. I'm actually going to love you, and I'm going to be the person that says, hey, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. I'm going to tell you what choice to make. If you ask me my opinion on it, I'm going to give you my opinion that I don't think it's a really, really good thing for our society when people are en masse having hundreds and thousands of these a year. Now, the argument that a lot of the people make who are pro-choice, who are adamantly pro-choice, are that my body, my choice. I'm a dude. I can't even speak on it. I can understand all that stuff. I totally get it. But as a human being, we all can have a say. And if you don't like my say, you don't have to listen to my say. And I don't have to listen to yours. And that's kind of where we always end up, right? Oh, don't listen to it if you don't like my opinion. But my opinion is that, I would love for my daughter to make really smart choices. And if that choice ended up being that she got pregnant young, I would not advocate for an A, because I don't think that is a death sentence like the people say it is. And I just believe that all life is inherent value. So one of the big things that gets me is that I'm villainized because I think that life has value. So but I do get the other side where, people are making laws and stuff. It is your body, your choice. And I do believe that if you want to make the choice to do that, then that is your choice to make. I won't judge you for it. I will not sit here and be like, shame on you. I will actually just be like, hey, do you need a shoulder to cry on? Do you need someone to talk to about it? I will be that person. And I think that's what Christians need to be, which is what leads me into what we're talking about today. That the church is actually, yes, pro-life, but I would argue that the church is pro-birth. And what I mean by that is that they're all good if you make the choice to have your baby, but up to that point, then they're just like, okay, thanks for having your baby, bye. And I'm not saying all church. Again, when I say all, it is the majority. If I were to put out a tweet right now that says, has anybody that's ever had a baby inside of a church out of wedlock or have you ever had a good experience inside of a church? I bet you that would be very, very, very low on I had a great experience as a pregnant teen through my church. I mean, I know I grew up in a church that was very, very fundamental, and the pastor, his daughter went to Bible college, and like from what I think I remember her saying is that the first time she ever had sex, she got pregnant. The first time. So first of all, it was totally not enjoyable. Second of all, you get pregnant and you're kind of like at Bible college and your dad's a pastor. That pastor gets ousted by the church because of his daughter's choice, which is crazy to me. Which is another thing with the Carl Lentz thing that bugs me, is that his wife gets fired because she was a staffer at Hillsong too. They fired her right along with him, even though she did nothing wrong. Anyway, all that to say is that other people's sin can tend to bring other people's lives down because by proxy, that's the decision they made. Anyway, so where was I going with all that? Anyway, to say that the church takes a stance on pro-life for sure, because they have to, because they do believe the Bible says that. I mean, people are arguing, well, what about the Bible? The Bible does not advocate for A. I'm sorry. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. Does it happen in the Bible? For sure. Does God kill millions of people? Absolutely he does. Yep. And so that's for sure. But we're talking about innocent people here that have no choice and have no voice. And we're not talking about we can argue all day long about, God being a tyrant, okay? And there are plenty of evidence in the Bible for God being that type of person. But again, he lives outside of our understanding. We're never going to understand it. And so I don't even, I'd love to understand it, but I don't think I'm ever going to. And so I just have to kind of sit where I sit with my faith and then get the answers later. So, but today's topic, again, is on the idea of the church and their stance and how they're getting it wrong. And so the idea that churches can be pro-life there's nothing wrong with it. And I think a lot of you would say that there is something wrong with it, but there is not. I think that the society overall has to allow people to have this view. And here's why. Because if you value human life, like these people and Christians and people believe that these babies are, then you can't villainize somebody for valuing human life. I'm sorry, that's just not, you cannot take a moral high ground on somebody who says this is human life and we value it. And so the people who are so pro-A and who are so anti-religion and hate God, that's fine. But what they do is they diminish this thing, this clump of cells or something that doesn't matter. But at the same time, when they find like a microorganism on Mars, all of a sudden life is out in space. But the life inside of a person is not, because it's a clump of cells and it's a parasite and all this stuff. And it just, the way that we've moved into this movement of just diminishing everything to lend to your argument, it sucks, because nobody wins, especially not anybody who's trying to understand the ramifications of anything. So again, I preface all that to say that if you do these things, if you go and have the A and do the thing you need to do for your choice, again, I don't think the church should be judging you. I don't think anybody should be judging you. That's just the way the world is. For anything anybody does, shouldn't be judged. But where the church gets it wrong, okay, is they're pro-life up to the point and they'll stand on that pro-life thing. But then as soon as a baby is born, the church does nothing. Generally. Now, I know I'm speaking in general terms, and I do. Not every church does anything, because I know a church in Florida who I was looking at, going to work there, and the one thing that I really, really, really enjoyed about that church is that they had a place in the back, a building on its own, that helped take care of single moms and their babies. And I think this is where it changed for me. This is where I had this big aha moment, like, oh my gosh, this is the answer. This is one of the, not the answer, but this is a big answer that if a church wants to stand on its pro-life stance, they also need to be pro-birth and pro-post-birth, right? They need to be like, okay, if you're going to have that child, and here's what I'm going to propose, okay? And this is going to sound pie in the sky, but I actually am going to make an argument for how doable this really is, okay? How doable and how beneficial this really would be to its community and to everybody in the world who is pro-life. Okay, and pro-choice. What does somebody need to do to convince the world that being pro-life is okay, right? Because the argument to be made against pro-life is that you are taking away a woman's right to choose. And we can agree that that is exactly what it is, right? If you want to make laws against a person choosing what to do with their body, that is making a law against what they want to choose to do with their body. If you want to choose to do this, that is your choice and it is your right and it is a law that allows you to do it. Okay, there's no laws that say you can't. And so doing it, if we're looking outside the walls of Christianity and religion, that's where it should land. That is your law, that is your right, and do what you got to do. Your body, your choice. I absolutely agree with that. Go for it, and I won't judge you. But you can't also not judge people like me who say, well, in my opinion, I do think it's life. Here's what I'm going to propose, and here's why I think it's going to be. I'm surprised that more churches don't do this. And I think this is a very simple solution that helps so many people. Okay, so the church takes a pro-life stance. The baby is born. In today's society, most churches just be like, okay, cool. They might help a single mother here and there. They might do a little bit here and there, help them out a little bit. But we know that most churches aren't super generous with what they have, right? I know my ex-church that just, that fired me, came out with their statement recently, and $1.3 million of their budget went to salary. There's a line item in there for the elders, and if you want to hear my story, head over here, or here, it's here, and you can hear my story. But the people were asking them in the meeting, where are the lawyer fees coming from? And the elders line had a budget for $30,000. Now, I'm not saying that that's what they used to fight me and pay their lawyer, but I'm assuming that's what it is. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with paying salaries of people in a church. I absolutely believe that people should be paid, and they should be paid very well in ministry. I'm not arguing against that. But the other $1.7 million, okay, over like almost 50% of the other salary, where does it go? It goes towards tech, it goes towards coffee and donuts and food and waste and paper and like lights, and I don't know what it goes to. Like obviously they're spending it because churches have to spend their money. But here's my proposal. Here's what I'm proposing. So this church in Florida has this building in the back where if you are a single mother and you need help, you can drop your kid off here and they will take care of your kid, free daycare. Okay, imagine this. You're pro-life and you say, you know what, we're so pro-life and we're so pro-post-birth that when you have that baby, we're so excited that you chose that. And here's what we're gonna do for you if you're a single mom. We are going to walk you through every step of this process and give you support every step of the way. And this is what that support looks like. At my ex-church, okay, there is a massive kids wing, okay? Incredible indoor playground worth over $200,000, okay? Gorgeous fake streets. It looks like Sesame Street in there, okay? It costs, I don't know how much it costs. It costs like $5 million or some insane amount of money for this kids wing. Massive classrooms. I think there's 5 massive classrooms and a preschool with a huge open area, okay? Gorgeous. It would be like a state-of-the-art daycare is what it is basically, right? And so my proposal to a church like this is to hire as many daycare workers as you possibly could need, okay? Let's say, and you keep hiring them as you grow. That place maxes out at like, I don't know, 500 kids or some insane number or something. I don't know, 500, 300 kids. Let's say it maxes out at 300. First of all, a community of my size, you're not gonna ever maximize the capacity of 300 kids for free daycare. Well, maybe you will, but there's got to be parameters set in place, but I'll get to that in a minute. So basically what I'm saying is that a church like that has a facility like that literally sits empty except for like maybe 1 hour every other week on Wednesdays for single moms to come and chat while their kids play in the playground and drink a coffee, right? That's their outreach. That's what they justify spending millions and millions of dollars on. Opening their playground for 1 hour a day. I think it's maybe 1 hour a day for the week, and then you come out and just hang out, and then for 1 hour, and that's it. And that's their outreach. But imagine you did this. You open up that place. You hired a bunch of daycare workers, which then, hires people in your community, which then puts money into your community, okay? Because daycare workers can make 50 grand. Like, that's what I'm saying. Pay them well, too. 50 grand for each daycare worker. Follow all the rules. We have everything in place. All the emergency protocols are put in place. You get the food and everything. You get people to work. So you're helping. These kids come, okay? It's a win-win for churches, too, because you get to indoctrinate the kids to Jesus, right? So what I'm saying is that you get to bring them in and teach them about Jesus if you want to, or have them in a neutral area and teach, and you just watch their kids. So you're going to tell these moms who've had the baby, we're so happy you had this baby. Thank you for having this baby. We're glad that you chose this. And so what we're going to do for you now is we're going to watch your baby while you go work. Because one of the major issues of single moms is that they can't work, and then they have to live in poverty, okay? They have to live on welfare, and they get nothing, and then the kids cycle back into poverty. That's how this works, okay? That's how this works. Single moms can't work, so they have to live off welfare, and then they get cycled, and their kids live off welfare, and this is all they ever know, and then they cycle back into it, or they, kids, and I don't know the data, but my gut tells me the data is pretty high with kids who cycle back into poverty. They also cycle into crime and gangs, and they don't have good school lives. It's very, I grew up in this is why I know. I grew up in poverty, okay, big time poverty, and I didn't cycle back into poverty because I left when I was 17. And I was, well, actually, no, you know what? I was living in poverty until I got married, basically, paycheck to paycheck my entire life. I never was on welfare, but it was really close. I was homeless for a period of my life. And so I do know that this is a dangerous place for people to be. I am the exception, not the rule, okay? I got out of it. I'm the exception. So if the church actually stood up and said, look, we're going to watch your kid. Not only that, okay? Not even just that. That's great. That's easy. That's the easy part. Because you know what you could do? You could actually rally your church. Instead of raising $10 million for a new building, why don't you raise $1 million every year to fund your daycare? Right? Why don't you ask, if you're a church like my ex-church here in the city was, okay, why don't you have enough influence, because this lead pastor at this church meets with all the other pastors. There's a little round table of all those younger pastors that he indoctrinates, right? Why don't you say, look, all these churches around here, what if we all pitched in $50,000, or, depending on the size of your church, 10,000 here, 25,000 there, gathered all your churches and said, look, our place is going to be the central location for this giant ass daycare with like a shuttle and everything, okay? Pick up your kids, drop them off, whatever you need done, right? Imagine they use their influence to talk to other churches and say, if we all pooled our resources, this could be, what is it? Many hands make light work or something like that. So again, that's the easy part, but no one has ever done that. And I don't think they ever will. And that's sad. But so not only the daycare, I know I keep getting off on a tangent, but also you're going to feed these kids every day. You're also going to be like, use your considerable wealth and influence inside your church to lobby grocery stores, pharmacies, Toys R Us, Walmarts to do some kind of campaigning. So when these moms are working, you're also just going to be, here's some groceries. And I'm not kidding. Here are like $250 worth of groceries every freaking week. I know everybody's going to roll right. Oh, it's welfare. I'm not there yet. Just hear me out. Or you hand them grocery gift cards or whatever it is you need to do to help these moms. Okay. 3, you are going to use your considerable network inside of your church of all the business leaders and stuff inside your church to help that woman find a job. I know in my ex-church of many employers, and I'm not saying it's always going to work because some people are not employable, right? I'm not going to say that this is just an easy answer. I know I said pie in the sky to begin with. This is a little bit of a harder one because not everybody has the skills needed to do a job that pays them well. But okay, so let's say they do have the jobs and the skills in this set, right? But they decide to have a baby, and that baby can be detrimental to them getting a career or going to school. That's where the church comes in. So if they are good at what they do, you get them a job, you take care of their kid, and you let them go work, and then you help them out with groceries and anything they need until they get on their feet, right? And then you continue taking care of that kid until that woman no longer needs it, right? So 2 good things happen here, especially if they're employable, okay? Is that eventually they become part of a society where they input into the society by paying taxes, and they get off of welfare. Okay, that they become self-sufficient and they make good money, and then they can maybe take their kid out of that place and put them in a pay one, or can keep them there and pay if they want to. You can have a tiered system like that. I know that's easy to say, but there are a lot of women out there who are really good at what they do, and they can't work because they have to take care of their child because no one will. Okay, a lot of them are often alone because they don't have any support system behind them. Okay, so let's be real about that. 2, if they're not employable and they need to, they're really young, because a lot of these women are really, really young, and a lot of them haven't even exited high school yet. So then you take care of their kid and you make sure you do everything in your power to make sure that they finish school, whether that is at your church, right? Or they go to school, or it's a placement inside of a college and helping them get there by filling out the paperwork to get what they need to get done. I'm even advocating, yes, that you pay for their college. And I know people are like, oh, yeah. And I know that sounds very socialist of me, and I don't care. I'm telling you, if you are a church of considerable means, and most of them are, this is relatively simple for you to do. Is it going to be expensive? It's going to be fucking expensive, okay? Really expensive. Is it valuable? Yes, it is. It's worth every effing penny you would ever spend and more. Part 3 would be to make sure that they're taken care of, that if they have debts, you pay off their debts. I know that's, again, sounds crazy. But hear me out. And if they need rent, you pay the rent until they can get on their feet. A lot of this all has to do with until they can get on their feet. What you're doing is alleviating the welfare system by being a charity. Yes. And all this is, here's good things of all these things. And I know it sounds so socialist of me. And I know churches would never do this, but I'm saying this is where they can get it right. If you want to be pro-life, here's a million things you can do that you can easily do if you really wanted to, by using your considerable influence inside your church and all the wealthy tithers inside your church to just set aside 20-30% of what you bring in, or increase it every year to make that considerable chunk of money you need to do all the things you need to do. I'm not saying you can be something for everybody. Obviously, it has to be on a per case basis, depending on how you're going to help somebody. But if you can help somebody get out of poverty, get into a school, get a good job, or help them get a good job, that person is 1 million times more likely to hear what you have to say. It's 1 million times more likely to be receptive to Jesus. Your church will be talked about among the masses. You will make the papers. You will make national headlines. You will do amazing things by setting a precedent to go make big moves for Jesus as far as a pro-life stance is concerned. And in the end, if you want to take a pro-life political stance, you have a leg to stand on. Because right now, none of us have a leg to stand on. But if you want to take a movement to a next level and have something to say, then if churches actually stood up, stepped up, and did something relatively, I'd say to the world, this is insane, could you imagine the social impact it would have? If you're all upset that there's 300,000 plus A's a year, and you're not doing anything about what happens after they don't have the A, and you're not helping the mother for real, you're not, then shut your mouth, churches. Hear me? You're not going to talk the talk and walk the walk, then just shut your mouth. You can have the views, and if somebody asks your opinion, you can give the opinion, but shut your mouth if you're not going to help. All these people standing outside of Planned Parenthoods and all these people pouring so much time and energy into these places that are so anti-A, instead of the billions of dollars you're pouring into that, why don't you pour it into this type of situation and stop judging these mothers for making a hard decision in their life, and start pouring all that money and resource into helping them after the baby's born. Because then maybe it wouldn't be so bad if you knew that your community had a place. Hey, I got pregnant. This is going to be so bad because I can't finish school. I have to, quit my job. But if you knew in your area, in your city, in your town, there was a church that did this for you, I know that there would be at least a percentage of those people that would not choose that. And that's what the church wants. The church doesn't want you to choose that. They want you to choose life. And so if you knew that existed, a percentage of people would be like, okay, it's not going to be so bad because I know I have this support system here. So what is this going to cost? It's going to cost a shitload of money. How does this get funded? Through churches. Look at a church like North Point. I know I talk about North Point a lot because I've been there a few times and I love North Point. It's one of the churches that, I know they're a mega giant church with all the bells and whistles, and they got guys flying in on cables for Christmas specials and all that shit, and they definitely have an exorbitant amount of waste, because I've been there and I've seen their sound system, and oh my God. And I'm a nerdy sound system dude. I love tech. If you're a doer of tech, and you go to North Point or a church like that, you literally jizz in your pants when you see what they have there. And it's really hard not to be jealous and covet everything that these churches have, okay? They have an exorbitant amount of money. So I'm taking a North Point, for example, with probably upwards of $40 million a year budget. They have a thing called Wamba Land. And I'm not sure that they don't do this. I'm sure they don't. But imagine a church like North Point takes Wamba Land and turns it into a daycare for during the day for people who need to go to work, and they watch your kids for free. They also hook you up with a few giant ass bags of groceries every week, because they have considerable wealthy people in that church who have considerable ties to grocery stores and everything else, okay? They can just start their own food bank and just give it out to their people if they really want to, okay? There's really simple ways to do this, and they have the staff to pull this shit off, and easily have the staff to pull this shit off, and the budget for it, no problem. Imagine Andy Stanley gets up on stage and says, look, it's going to cost us, we have 355 kids in our program this year that are helping mothers get back to work and get back to school. And this is what it's going to cost. We're helping them pay off their debts. We're helping them do this. We're helping them get financially stable. We're teaching them how to be financially stable. Again, that's another thing, is you can actually teach these moms. Look, if they're out of school and they don't have a job, then you can actually bring them in and use a considerable amount of your knowledge and that knowledge that Dave Ramsey and all these people to teach them how to finance, teach them how to use their money, teach them a job skill, whatever it is. There's so many things the church can do and they're not doing, and they can do it for free. Oh my gosh, there's so many things they can be doing. I get so excited about it because there's so much potential here and nobody's fucking doing it. Anyway, so imagine, get back to Andy Stanley, and he comes out on stage and he delivers a powerful message of hope for Christmas and how that, it's important for us as Christians to help everybody, to love everybody, because it was what Jesus did. And he actually said, look, we need $1.5 million to run our systems here. We got 65 daycare workers in there full time, and they're contributing members to their society too. We're paying them well. They're living, they're loving their life. They're coming in here taking care of babies. These kids are growing, are being loved and loved on and playing with toys and developing friendships and community and all this amazing stuff that can happen there while the moms are out there either in school, they're learning, they're working hard, and we're teaching them to be good with their finances, and we're helping them get better, and we're helping them get off welfare, and we're helping them get a place to live. We're paying for the rent, we're giving them groceries, we're doing all these things. Could you imagine the tears in the auditorium about all the amazing things that they're doing at that church for these people? You can imagine the impact on the just city, on just their community, if they did that. Could you imagine the world headlines about a church like North Point doing something like that? Then at the same time, churches are going to start picking that up and being like, I'm going to go do this program, because North Point is really good at creating programs. I think it's called Orange is one of them, Wamba Land. They have all their kids. You can buy all of their programs. They've laid it out in it costs a lot of money to buy their programs, but they're really good at it. So they could create a program that a church could adopt to say, here's how it works. Here's the insurance it's going to cost you. Here's what it costs to do this and blah, blah, blah. And it's obviously going to be a fluctuated, cost in different areas. And they could do a program for you. I almost want to do this, but I'm not smart. So I say all this because I'm so excited about the idea that a church could do this. And if the right person hears this and tries this, and I'm sure it's already been tried, but churches don't want to do it. I don't know why. I would love to hear an argument for why a church shouldn't be doing this. Please. Because, I think here's an argument people are going to have. Well, because you're just perpetuating welfare. People are going to take advantage of it. Yep. Let them. Who gives a shit? Take advantage of people's, so be it. You're still taking care of kids, you're helping somebody out. Again, I do think there needs to be parameters put in place for this type of thing, right? I don't think you should just be able to drop your kid off, go home and have a nap, or go clubbing, or do whatever you want to do. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think that most would anyway. But that if people would be taking advantage of it, and people feel like shit when they get taken advantage of, and churches do. No one's immune from being taken advantage of. If Jesus did this and you got taken advantage of, he wouldn't care. That's what I'm saying. He'd be like, look, if you want it, you got it. It's yours. But I do believe you should have certain parameters put in place. Like, if the mother does this, then yes, there has to be proof that she's actually working, or you help her get a job, that she's becoming a contributing member to society, right? And that she's working, or she's going to school, and you're helping her get there, and you're doing all that stuff because you're monitoring it, and you actually have people at your church in place to advocate for these moms and be their touch point and everything else, to say, how are you doing at work? How's this going? Do you like it? Do you need something? You need formula? You need diapers? Whatever it is. There's an advocate also inside that church. That would be the best job ever, by the way. Calling up moms to see what they need. It would be heartbreaking sometimes, because there are people who are going to fail, right? There are people who are going to fail out of this thing. And that sucks. But if the overwhelming majority of people get help they need, you can, even if you raise out of poverty 50% of the people that come in, that is a huge deal, especially to the government. And there's going to be, don't even forget about the grants that you can apply for something like this. The government will throw money at you if a church did this. Hey, we're going to start this program. Here's all the money. You can apply for tax relief, everything. There's so much in there the government would give you. The churches just don't do this. Here's what's fucking mind-blowing to me. The churches in my city, there's probably 150 churches. And I know that there are people that do some of this on some level, but oh my God, nobody's really doing this. Nobody really is. And could you imagine the impact? Look, a lot of small churches have a lot of women who serve there, who are stay-at-home moms, and they live to serve at the church. That's like their thing. They love it. And I love these, and I know these women, and they are my favorite women, okay? They serve selflessly. They love it with every ounce of their heart. They don't feel like they're being taken advantage of, and they like, if something comes up, they're there with bells and whistles, with brownies, cookies, peanut-free, because every church is peanut-free, okay? And they're there to help no matter what. And I love these. Could you imagine even just a small church saying, we need full-time volunteers to do this year? And here's the thing with volunteers. I know it gets crazy because people will flake out. This is why I don't think you should use volunteers, but you could use volunteers on a certain level. I mean, imagine the friggin' students you could use for all the hours they need for their volunteer hours. Like, I mean, there's so many. The church is just a catalyst with its influence to bring people in. And they can use their influence in their community to say, look, grocery store over here, if you donate this much a week, man, we are going to like prop you up and tell everybody in our church to go shop at your grocery store, right? You're going to be part of this with us. You just have to get people to advocate. You have to influence for the right reasons. I know this is all pie in the sky, but it is actually, if you think about it, it's not really that difficult to do what I'm saying right now. It really isn't. You already have staff. You hire more people, and you literally can pay more people and bring in daycare workers who get paid to do this. So you're not only helping these single moms out who need that, but you're also helping all these daycare workers who are getting paid probably shit where they are and bring them together for this. One argument can be made too that I just thought about is that you would take away from daycare centers in your area, right? But again, you have to have parameters put in place that if you can afford this, this isn't for you. This isn't a place for people who can't afford it. This is a place for people who cannot afford this. We know who can't. And so of course you're going to have a funnel system that gets them into the place and find out, that so you're not being taken advantage of. There are easy ways to do that. Smarter people than I can come up with easy ways to do that, right? But it will not, because do you know the effing lineup for getting into daycare where I live? So this would only help, right? And you know what? Even if for the lineup for the people who are willing to pay, why don't you let them come send their kids here too and pay so that you can also bring in income for it so that you can help offset the cost. So if you have 300 spots and 250 of those spots are for kids who need it and 50 of those spots are for people who are outstanding waiting lists everywhere else, then you can make a little bit of money. I'm just saying there's ways to do this. I'm just spitballing off the top of my head. Imagine churches stepped up and were pro-birth and pro-afterbirth. And saying, we love that you made this choice. We love it. And we're so happy you did. And so welcome. And we're going to do everything in our power to help you and your little baby. The social ramifications. First of all, you get all the pats on the back you really want. Your pastor of your church gets to be the guy that has launched this program and is like, gets all the accolades because that's what they're there for, okay? You will literally make national headlines. You will become a person, a church that people are like, okay, that church is doing it right. And then you will inspire other churches to do the same thing. And then it becomes this cool thing where all these communities are doing these types of things for their communities. All these churches are doing these things for their communities. Look, a lot of churches we spend 10% of our income on missionaries overseas. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But churches really, really lack doing things socially in their own communities. I know that church that I left, they do what's called a backpack drive, and it's great. They bring like 500 backpacks in. The church doesn't pay a penny for those backpacks. They use their considerable influence to reach out to the congregants to say, look, we're doing a backpack drive. Bring your backpack in. They don't spend a penny. And then they give the backpacks to the communities, and the community's like, thanks, church, when the church just used its people to do it. And I get it. The church is the people, right? It's supposed to be. They do the same thing at Christmas. They have the Christmas tree and they put like 100 things on it. You pick it up and you buy a present. They do the same thing with Operation Christmas Child. There's amazing things the church does. Millions and billions have given every year, and generally it never comes out of the church's pocket. Rarely does anything come out of the church's pocket. Even the food that this church gives to people for their care program is done with volunteers. I think some of it's paid for by the church. So the church generally, all the money that comes into a church just gets spent on salaries and things inside the church. It rarely gets pushed out to the community. I do know that this church does give out tons and tons of gift cards for groceries and stuff. Yes, thousands of dollars, thousands for sure. But not like, if they're bringing in $3 million, I'm sure that they're giving out about 10,000, maybe less of gift cards for groceries. So that to say, I know on the inside what churches are spending. So can we make an agreement here that being pro-life is not bad? Being pro-choice is not bad. Okay? We can all sit in the middle here and say, look, it's the law of the land. You got to do what you got to do. I don't believe it. I'm not going to have one. I'm going to, if you want my opinion, I'll give you my opinion, but otherwise I can keep my mouth shut. right? If you do the thing that I think the Bible says it's against, that's okay, because we all sin, okay? And I'm here for you if you need me, because remember what I tell you guys, you are valuable, regardless of what you've done in your entire life, regardless of anything that you've ever done, okay? I'm a sinner just like everybody else. And just because people might have had an A, okay, does not make them less people. It does not make them less valuable or should be less loved. And that's where the church gets it wrong, because they do love these people less. And that's very effing dangerous, okay? You think somebody standing outside of Planned Parenthood with a sign that's like, F you for having an A, you think that person's gonna go to church? You think they're gonna listen to what you have to say? You really think that that's an effective tool? Maybe for 1 in a million it's an effective tool, and they're like, oh, you're right, I'm ashamed. You never, ever, ever can shift people to your side by using shame and blame and violence and all that stuff. Same thing goes for Christians who sit there and judge people for being gay, transgender, having A's, and doing all these things that they think are sin, when they're literally sinning by doing the thing that they're doing, okay? Sin is sin is sin is sin is sin. There's no spectrum of sin, okay? This is the line for sin. If you've done the sin, you pass the line. It doesn't matter what the sin is. There's no spectrum, and that's where the church gets it wrong. They think there's a spectrum. Every single person sins and falls short. So shut your mouth about sin. Again, and stop using the argument, if you're pro-life, stop using biblical arguments for pro-life. And here's why. Because those people who are pro-choice generally don't give a shit what the Bible has to say. And so it's a moot argument. If you want to argue the science of it, we can argue the science of it. Imagine a church just did what I said to do, okay? Just selflessly, even if they were being taken advantage of, did what I did. Could you imagine the impact it would have? I got a little heated today on this topic because it is a very important topic. The next one I want to cover is probably going to be this church's stance on LGBTQ, and it's going to be just as fiery. It's going to be just as bad, because again, I want you guys to know that before, when I was drinking the Kool-Aid, I was on board for all these ideas that, like, I was, if you're gay, you're sinning, all this stuff. I was definitely there. I had gay friends, I have gay family. But one thing I want to say, that I was never ever judgmental of those people. And I always really, especially as a pastor, I wanted those people to be there when I was leading worship. I wanted them to be in the audience. I knew that those people in the audience needed the most love and they came needing the most connection, and they got the least of it. Okay, because they're social outcasts inside of a church because of their lifestyle choices. And so, but I did, if the leadership came down, I remember there was a guy who brought his kid, 4-year-old, and came to the lead pastor and said, hey, my 4-year-old is transgender. We'd like you to use his pronouns. And the pastor's like, no, we're not going to use the pronouns. And so the guy left. And so where's that guy now? He doesn't go to church anymore, I bet. He came to this church expecting love and acceptance, and instead got, no, we're not going to do the thing you want, because F you. Because I don't know why. And that right there, that was a pivotal moment for me in that church too, where I was like starting to question whether or not I was going to stick around or not. And I think a lot of this stuff that when I started deconstructing after I got fired, a lot of the stuff was festering anyway. Why do we put so much weight on certain sins and not on others? When there's like 100 pastors out there that weigh like 400 pounds. You know that gluttony is a sin, right? So many pastors out there have wasteful spending, driving expensive Lexuses and expensive watches and all this. You know that waste and gluttony is a sin, right? You know that. Pastors out there looking at pornography, you know that that's a sin, right? Swearing's not a sin, as far as I'm concerned. There's so many pastors out there that are doing this wrong. And we give them grace and understanding every single day. But as soon as someone comes in and doesn't believe on these pivotal sin moments or something in the Christian timeline, what a weird place to be in. The church as a whole needs to stop this bullshit and needs to start stepping into the real world and saying, no matter, we're all sinners together. You know what? If you want my opinion, I can give it to you. If you want to know what the Bible says about it, I'll give you what I think the Bible says about it. But in the end, I'm going to love you no matter what. It doesn't matter what you did. I'm going to love you because that's what I'm supposed to do. Because that is the message of hope. Is to say, no matter what this is grace, everybody. The church misses it every fucking time. This is grace. You do something wrong, God loves you, you have forgiveness. Because I sin too. Except no, oh, well, you did the thing, so you're gone. We don't want you serving, we don't want you giving out pamphlets at the door anymore because, it's bad. It's the optics. Your optics. Start loving like Jesus loved people. Your optics mean shit because they make you look bad. Your protection of your optics makes you look worse. NDAs and all that shit, you're terrible. Sorry for the rant. Anyway, guys, this is going to be a very hotly debated and I'm going to get some hate in these comments, and I'm ready for it. I stand behind my thought process on this. Okay? But let's make it a debate, not about and pro-life and pro-choice, but about a debate about what the church should be doing about it. Can we do that at least? Can we land there? Can we be adults? I hope so. I really do. And I think you guys who are watching understand my heart on a lot of things. I advocate for kids' exploitation and for kids in general. And I think this is one big part of it. I hope that you guys can show me the same grace and understanding for having a pro-life stance. Okay? Because I'm never going to love anybody less for anything that they've ever done in their life. And I hope that I can be shown the same grace. But I know I won't. Anyway, if it helps at all, you are important. You are valuable. Somebody loves you. I love you. Somebody has a crush on you. Your butt looks good in those pants. I hope today is amazing for you. I know it's getting a little bit cold up here in Canada. Christmas is coming. This is the time of year where people are very generous and giving, and it's just a great time to be alive. I love Christmas. And if you guys know of a church that is doing some cool stuff, can you reach out to me? I almost want to do a social experiment with a church to do this. And can we rally a few people to let's see if we can try something like this at a medium-sized church somewhere who's willing to put forth the effort, to raise the money, to do something crazy, to set a precedent. Wouldn't that be amazing? I would love it for my legacy to be an idea that I left churches to use your churches for amazing things to help single moms and people who need your help, truly. And not just pretend you're throwing 10% at the world of money that people gave you anyway. You're asking people for 10% of your money and you're giving away 10% of that money that comes in. Can you and you're paying exorbitant salaries and everything else. And again, not against paying pastors, because pay them. But use your considerable wealth, privilege, and influence to do something great for your community. This would be incredible. This would be a game changer, right? Like and subscribe or don't, I don't care. One thing I do want you to do is follow me on Instagram, because that's the thing. Okay, if I get this in, you guys all go follow me on Instagram right now. Make another account and follow me on Instagram. Just follow me on Instagram, please. I'm terrible. Anyway, it's a heavy topic today. I'm gonna come back with a micro video to cleanse the palate of the heavy topic. Yeah, I'm very passionate about this because the church gets it wrong. So I hope that you took away that it's less about me being pro-life and that I stand on that stance, and more about the fact that the church has shit the bed too many times and that they need to fix what they need to fix and, fix it up. That's all I'm saying. Catholic Church is worth something like $200 billion or something. Can you imagine the impact it could have? Just saying. Just saying. The answer is there. The answer is simple. The answer is easy. It's expensive though. And that's where, and it helps people, which is why, just do it. Anyway, I love you guys. Have an amazing day. I'll probably see you this afternoon. Do you like my hoodie? Boom. Chachi. Get one in the Teespring store below.